Welcome back, everyone. We are back on YouTube and LinkedIn bringing you yet another exciting episode of the Top Innovator Series. This is where we dive into proven leadership ideas, game changing strategies, and the brilliant minds behind them. My name is Joseph Martins, and I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest to you. With us today is Larry Hack. Larry has held almost all the tech executive roles there are. Today, he is the SVP of IT Shared Services at PriceSmart. And before that, he was the CTO at CPAP, SVP of Technology at Crane Worldwide Logistics, and CIO of Global Custom Commerces. And today, we're thrilled to have him with us. Larry, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Joseph. Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. So, topic is leadership, Larry. You've had a super successful leadership journey, and I just wanted to see what you think is the reason for that success. When you reflect on your own journey, what do you think are some of the secret ingredients for your success?
Well, I grew up in a family business, and my father put me out in the store in front of customers right off the bat when I was very young. 6 years old, I'd be walking out to the store
Whoa.
and greeting customers. So I think that helped eliminate any fear of speaking with different people, and it gave me a confidence to interact with them. And when I moved into my first job outside of our family business, I met a CTO that was came to join the company where I was at. Really, really smart man that just seemed to know everything about technology. And I marched into his office one day and said, "Hey, you know a lot about so many things, and I really want to grow my career. I'm a young guy and I need direction. Will you mentor me?" And he embraced
Okay.
me, took me under his arm, and really helped me grow and mature my career. Some other really key areas, I think finding mentors like that
Mhm.
is vital. I do a
Yeah.
lot of extreme sports. I'm a base jumper, a wingsuit flyer. I jump in the mountains in Europe and so forth every year. And it's just absolutely critical to find mentors that have been down that path and know how to do the things, that understand what you don't know and can help you be successful. So finding those mentors, I think, is really critical for you to growing and learning the skills that you need. But then at some point, you become pretty good at some of these things with the help of those people. And now you can turn around and mentor other people
Hmm.
in areas that you've now become an expert in. And I think when someone asks you to be a mentor, it's an honor, but it's also a big responsibility to help them grow, and it puts you under a bit of stress to make sure you know what you're talking about. So I think you tend to study more, you validate things, you research things because you want that person to be successful. So I think
Yep.
that carries over into everything we do as leaders, is that we want to help our teams grow. We don't want to just manage them. We don't want to tell them what to do. We want to help them understand why we're asking them. I often joke about, as boss, I don't want to tell people what to do. I want them to want to do what I want them to do. And it you get there, you get there not by just, this is how you should do it, but it's maybe kind of guiding them to that.
Nice.
And
Hmm.
one last thing I'll say is that I think it's really nice to help them come to those conclusions on their own. So, I say
Hmm.
within my team, look, everybody has an opinion and they need to express their opinion, but somebody owns the decision. So our CISO owns some of
Hmm.
our security decisions. Our enterprise architect owns some of the decisions, but it's his job to listen to what everybody says,
Hmm.
ingest all of that, and then make a final decision, and that everybody on the team should
Yep.
support that idea as if it was their own to help make it successful.
Yep. Very cool. Very clear, right? Three things I heard there: focus on customers or exposure to customers, the importance of mentorship, and how decisions are made. The both through listening through opinions and then taking charge of that decision. Let me dive into the mentorship a little bit more. Talk to me about some of the mentors that you had, and I'd be interested to know, especially advice that you got that didn't make sense at first, that was turned maybe into an aha moment for you. Maybe something didn't make sense at first, maybe even you thought this is stupid, but then with wisdom later on, you realized, ha, maybe there was something to that.
Yeah. I'm a cave diver, and I have a good
Wow.
friend, Ed Sorensen,
Okay.
who is one of the most famous cave divers in the world. He's rescued many people from inside of caves, which is unheard of. And he has taught me many things about diving. I've done some of my first DPV dives. It's a scooter that pulls you through the water in the cave, and I've done some training courses with him. And I held off on getting a rebreather for many years. It seemed to be quite dangerous. He was a big fan of the rebreather, and last year I got my rebreather training. And what really convinced me to make that switch was his insistence on how it made it safer. And to me, that
Mhm.
didn't seem right, because being on a rebreather, you're breathing these mixed gases, it's scrubbed, there's a lot more technology, it's more complicated. How can that possibly be true? He has so much experience and so much time on both types of diving, and he was able to explain how in the long run it's actually much safer because the extended gas that you have and so forth. So that's a really
Mhm.
technical one. From mentorship, I'll go with Wayne Saden, who I've worked with many times, and he's an excellent leader. And being in technology, we always think in terms of technical things. And early on in my career, he's like, you're just explaining things too technical. When you interact with the business, you need to put it into business terms. And I'm a young guy, and I'm like, well,
Mhm.
I'm trying to be more technical. Like I'm not even as technical as I would like to be. I want to show off my technical skills and use techie terms and so forth. And that seemed like the way to impress
Right.
people. And he said, no, you need to really speak in their terms. And if you can speak their language, they'll embrace you and interact with you. And I started working for blinds.com, and I was hired by Jay Steinfeld, who was the founder of blinds.com, because he had a technology team that spoke to him only in technology terms, and he wanted someone that spoke in his language. And I joined the company, and after a couple of months, I asked him how I was doing. He's like, "Oh, you're doing great. I really like the communication. I really like how things are
Okay.
moving." But he goes, you're not really a technical person. You're a business person." And at first I was like, I'm crushed. No, I'm a techie at heart. And then I realized, well, he wanted me to be a business person. He wanted me to be a partner. He wanted me to shield him from the technology. And that's what I was doing. And so that's what he felt I was doing right. He didn't see that I had the technical skills, but that's what he wanted. So in the long run, it was better that way.
Awesome. Yeah. And what is some advice that was really meaningful to you? Again, think back to mentors, trusted advisors that you had. What was some advice that you're still holding on to because you think this was so important or shaped your career?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. I've had so many mentors that have helped in so many
Mm-hmm.
ways. I think there was one who really enjoyed passion, and he liked to see passion in people. And, he really emphasized you're going to be with these people for long hours, and you should have fun. And I had been told by not a mentor, but a boss that I had that, well, you really shouldn't be friends with the people that work for you.
Hmm.
You're a
Okay.
boss, you have to maintain a certain level of authority. And if you become friends with them, then, that's going to go bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't feel right to me. And I felt
Mm.
like I wanted to be friends with these people because I spent so much time with them. And this person really shared with me to embrace that. And it does bring some tough decisions, because there have been times when I've had to let people go.
Yeah.
And it's even more painful when you've built up a relationship with them,
Mm-hmm.
not just a professional relationship, but a personal relationship. But the benefit you get out of having a strong personal relationship with the people that you work with, and you understand what makes them tick, you understand what's important to them and what they value, I think it helps you work with them better when you understand all about them
Mm-hmm.
and not just about the experience that they bring to the job.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. Now, you mentioned base jumping, you mentioned cave diving. I saw on your LinkedIn, it's a picture of, I assume it's you in the wingsuit,
It is,
right?
yeah.
So you're clearly deep into extreme sports, is that fair to say? How does
And
that
yeah.
influence? Is there a correlation between what you do in that domain and your leadership? Or is it completely separate worlds?
Oh, there's so much.
Okay.
Actually, several years ago, I was driving to go out to the drop zone to go skydiving. I was thinking, you know what? There's a lot of similarities between what
Okay.
I do in these sports, and I actually do a presentation called Extreme IT. Similarities I've discovered between managing IT and extreme sports. And so some examples are redundancy, right? In technology, we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have any single points of failure. We want to make sure that not only our computer systems, our routers, our switches, our servers, our databases,
Mm-hmm.
but also our people. And if you extend it even outside of IT, our vendors, the people that we work with, the systems, the people, too many cases in companies you have that guy that you go to. Well, if
Mm-hmm.
you need, UI work, you go to Stan. And if you need database
Mm-hmm.
work, you go to Sal. And I really like an agile approach where we have agile teams that are cross-functional, that have business expertise, development expertise, security expertise, and that team as a combined unit have all the skills that are needed to be
Yep.
able to build a system. And in skydiving, we have a primary canopy that opens up
Mm-hmm.
to allow us to land, but we also have a reserve canopy. So if something goes wrong, we can cut away the first canopy and have a reserve come out. In cave diving, it's dark in caves. It's pitch black. And so you have a primary light. I have a backup
Okay.
light on my mask. I have another light that I keep in my pocket, and I have two computers that I wear so that I know my
Hmm.
depth, the nitrogen buildup that I have, and so forth. And so there's just lots and lots of redundancy in those things.
Mm-hmm.
Pair programming is really popular, where you have two people programmed together. And some people would think, well, that's ineffective because you have two people writing one piece of software when you could have them both writing software. But when you have someone driving and someone, driving on the keyboard
Yep.
and someone watching them and they're interacting, you actually can be more efficient and you catch bugs that you might not have caught as an individual person.
Yep.
And so that's a great way to work together. Having mentors is one of the things that I mentioned in the presentation. You really have to have both. The sport is very expensive. I spend just a boatload of money on my toys and my fun, but I want to get the best equipment and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I have the tools that are going to keep
Mm-hmm.
me safe. And having the right equipment and the tools that we have. We also practice everything on the ground, for instance, before we go do a skydive. We just broke the world record in Chicago last month for head down flying. We had 200 skydivers in 9 planes, all exited out at the same time.
Whoa.
And they all have to come to a particular spot in the
Okay.
sky, and they have to move a fairly long distance across the sky to get to base. And then they have to hold hands with people in the sky as we fall through the sky, and then an organized break off where people on the outside break off and fly away and then open up, and then the next group opens up, so you get both vertical and horizontal separation.
Okay.
We practice all of those things on the ground for hours before we go spend 60 seconds in the sky doing it for real. So in technology, you may have an outage at some point, and you need to plan for a disaster. So your disaster recovery planning shouldn't just be paper plans of this is what we're going to do in case
Mm-hmm.
that there's an incident, because when it actually happens, people
Yep.
probably aren't going to be prepared.
Yep.
So, one, set your plans, define what it is, make sure people have their role, and the people that includes people within the business that have a role in all of this. And they should have a playbook that they use, that if this event happens, this is what we're going to do. Then to test it, spring it on them. I don't know, pick a Sunday afternoon, pick a Monday night at 4 o'clock. Maybe make it convenient for them and make it at, 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or something. But let them practice that for real.
Okay.
Also, often in software development, we write software, work on a software program for months,
Mm-hmm.
and then we go to production. And the very first time we're deploying it in production is 6 months after we've been working on it. But we've been doing it in our development and our stage and our QA environment. And almost always those deployments go bad. They just don't work
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I really like an iterative
Mm-hmm.
approach where you move things into production on a regular basis. So in
Mm-hmm.
Agile, we say we're going to take a sprint, usually
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks, and we're going to write stories. And those stories are going to be written in business terms so that the business
Mm-hmm.
knows what it is we're delivering. And we say 2 weeks from now, we're going to give you this feature. An example is if you have a website and you want to add strike through pricing on the site. You look at a product and there's a big red dash through it and it
Right.
says, $105 and it
Mm-hmm.
says, sale 92.50 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So that's strike through pricing. You can pick that as a feature and deploy that. And so you're always deploying things into production. When I
Mm-hmm.
started at blinds.com, which is, an e-commerce company, we were doing a sprint for 2 weeks and doing several features. And then at the end of the sprint, we would push all of those things at once. And if something went wrong, it was very difficult to roll it back and make changes. Well, using DevOps and automation, we would break all of those stories into their own little branch, and we would then deploy 4 or 5 things at the same time, but they
Mm-hmm.
were all as individual pieces.
Yeah.
We went from deploying once every 2 weeks to deploying average of 16 times per sprint or 8 times per week. So really getting on a
That's a lot.
pace where you're repeating things over and over again, make it
Mm-hmm.
much, much easier. I'll give you one more example, which I think is important.
I'm
So,
fascinated by the examples, Larry. I love these,
and
and congratulations on that world record. Mm.
oh, thank you. That
Okay.
was a very rewarding experience. In cave diving, the number one rule of cave diving is
Okay.
that you always maintain a continuous guideline to the surface. So
Okay.
when we go into a cave, they're usually caves that someone has been in before, and they lay line through the cave,
Mm-hmm.
and they use a special kind of line. It's a gold line. It's kind of a thick braided line. And so you need to stay close to that line because if you lose your lights,
Sure.
you lose your mask,
Mm-hmm.
you can get in contact with that line and you can follow it out. Well, in databases, we often make multiple changes at a same time. If you are dealing with a bank account and you're pulling money out of your ATM, you wouldn't want your ATM to take the money out of your account that you were asking for and then have an error and not actually give you the money. And then you go,
Mm.
well, okay, give me the money. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's gone.
Yeah.
And so you have a transaction, right?
Right.
That the entire transaction has to complete. So in our technology systems, we want to be able to roll back and get back to a known good state. In our source code, we do branching and
Okay.
merging. And if we are writing code and we introduce something into the code that breaks a lot of other things, and we're not really sure what we did, we want to be able to remove that branch that you had created with the bad code and be back onto the main branch that is working well. So always being able to get
Yep.
back. There's lots of other examples that I
Wow.
go into the presentation, but those are some of the key ones.
Yeah, this is awesome. It looks like I've opened a can of worm with that question about the correlation between sport, and you've got a talk on it. Awesome. So I think I can put a plug in here, right? It sounds like it's an awesome
Yeah.
presentation you have there. You probably have fantastic photos as well with that presentation. If anyone's interested,
Oh yeah.
reach out
We
to
put a
Larry. Yeah.
GoPro on the world record. Every single skydiver had a GoPro on their head. So yeah, the video from all the different angles.
Yeah. Now, we talked about your past leadership experience, Larry. I'd love to take a look at where you are today. And again, not a question about company, positions, or anything like that. It's about your leadership journey. When you look at where you are today, what's an area where you think you can grow? What's an area where you think I'm going to put my focus on there, my attention, and my energy because I want to grow in that area?
I work with a company that is serves in Central South America,
Okay.
and I speak Spanish. My wife is Puerto Rican, but my Spanish is not fluent, and communication is so key.
Mm-hmm.
And so the little bit of Spanish that I'm able to speak when I go to Costa Rica, or I'm actually headed to Colombia today,
Mm.
I'm going to be working with team members. Being able to throw in some Spanish and interact with them in their own language, I think is really key. business is more and more international.
Yeah.
And so understanding cultures, understanding people and where they come from, I think is really helpful. And that's an area I'd like to grow. I've traveled a fair amount through my life. I've been fortunate enough to do that, but I think
Hmm.
really embracing that. Um, what else can I think of? My technology skills can always improve because things change so quickly that
Mm.
keeping up
Yep.
is important. It's nice that it provides opportunities. It's kind of just in time learning. If you can embrace an approach around just in time learning, like I was working with AI a year ago and getting pretty comfortable with it. And our chief legal counsel
Yep.
asked if I could help him write a policy. And I was like, sure, I'd be happy to help you write that. It was an AI policy.
How to
And he
use
said, well, if
AI.
I gave you a week, would
Hmm.
that be enough time? Do you think you could, put together a policy? And I was like, well, let's just do it right now. And I got up my computer and I pulled up ChatGPT.
Right.
I said, as a publicly traded company, the chief legal
Hmm.
counsel, with
Right.
58 clubs and so forth, I want a policy, and it drafted a pretty nice policy. So being able to embrace those emerging technologies and kind of just in time learning, I think is really helpful. I have, and it's not just because I'm getting old, but I like have short-term memory loss. And it's like I just feel like I struggle with people's names. I struggle with technology terms. So I take lots and lots of notes to help me recall. And the thing is my wife is horrible with names as well. So if we like go to an event or something, neither one of us are very good at it, so we can't help each other. So we need to improve in that area. And people have an impression that if you don't remember their name or details and so forth, that you don't care.
You
And I
don't care,
really do
right?
care.
Mm.
I need to improve in that area so that I can come
Yep.
around the corner and see someone and immediately, say hi and use their name. I think that's so valuable that people feel that
Love it.
personalization. And so that's something I need to work on.
Very cool. Very cool. It makes me think this sounds like a future feature of the next AirPods generation, right? You've seen they have simultaneous translation now in the last
Oh,
generation,
yes.
and
It's like
remembering
Star
names.
Trek.
This would be awesome if if they could tell you you're meeting with whoever now. Yeah. Okay. Let
Yeah.
me ask you one
Universal
last.
translator.
Right, right. Let me ask you one last question, Larry, and then we're gonna land the plane. Um,
Mm.
let's assume you have a magic wand. You could make a change about how tech leaders lead. What would
Mhm.
that be? So, thinking about other people you know in that space, other folks who are leading technologists, and you could make one change in how they operate, how they lead their teams. What would that be?
Yeah, actually give authority to the people on your team, the
Okay.
ability to make those changes. Often we have you give someone a title of director of something or even vice president of something, but they can't
Mm.
move because they've got to run everything through the next level up.
Mm-hmm.
And really treating it as a team and being able to say this person has this role and we hired them and we pay them a lot of money to do that role, we're going to actually step back and let that person do that role and make the decisions and understanding that they will make mistakes but they will learn from it. If you can't trust the leaders in your company to do their job and you have to micromanage everything,
Yeah.
your company can't grow. It won't scale because you can't have all the decisions running through the very top level of executives because it's just too slow and the
Mm-hmm.
company's not going to be nimble.
Very nice. And there is a lot hinging on that, right? It's letting go, having courage, and so on.
Yeah, and
All
it's
of that.
hard to do
Mm.
that. People
Sure.
want to maintain that
Yep.
control. And I think sometimes even us as executives feel like, well, we need to be in control and we
Yep.
need to tell them we need to show our leadership. But leadership doesn't come from telling people exactly what to do. It comes from leading people to help them understand what the path is and
Mm-hmm.
let them decide on the best way to get there.
Yep. Yep. Very good. Larry, thank you so much. Been an absolute pleasure
Thank
having you
you.
here. And I'll think back a long time about the extreme sports and the connection there. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure thing. Bye.
To everyone else out there, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and most importantly, join us again for the next episode. And until then, keep your brain cells active.